The next addendum that they've added is this PACE disclosure. Again, if you're the listing agent, you should check the trim notice for your seller's property to see if there's a PACE loan. If there is a PACE loan, then you need to talk to your seller about how they have to pay it off at closing, because many sellers believe that they don't have to, and they come to closing or they get their first prelim and the PACE loan comes up on title and we add it to the CD and they say, oh no, I don't have to pay this. My lender told me that the buyer can assume it, which is true. The buyer can assume it, but they don't have to. And right in the middle of this addendum, it says, in the event buyer is obtaining a mortgage loan to purchase the property, be advised that most mortgage lenders will require the satisfaction or release of the PACE financing from the property, because a lender is not going to allow an exception to their title policy for a PACE loan. So if you have a lender on the buyer side and there's a PACE loan, the transaction is not going to close unless the PACE loan is paid off. If you have a cash transaction, the buyer does not have to accept an owner's policy with a PACE loan as an exception on there. And they certainly don't have to assume the payments for the PACE loan, unless they agreed to do that with the seller before entering into contract. Most of the time, buyers might be looking at a house that has new impact windows on it, and they are putting an offer on the house based on the listing price, and that listing price might take into consideration that there are new impact windows. If the seller got a PACE loan for those impact windows, the seller's paying that loan off as part of their taxes every year. But when they go to sell the property, they're going to have to pay it off in full. So if you're listing the property based on there being new impact windows on there, then it should stand that the seller has to pay that off at closing, because they're getting paid for those windows as part of the purchase price. So it's a discussion to have with your sellers to make sure you're on the same page, so they're not confused about what they're netting on a property once they have to pay off that loan. If it is a cash transaction and the buyer's going to assume the PACE loan, then that's fine. We can do an exception on the title policy, and then they can just continue paying the PACE loan as part of the taxes. So it becomes a real problem when there is a lender, or if the seller doesn't think they have to pay it off. And this is just a disclosure, by the way. This is disclosing to both the seller and the buyer that there is a PACE loan on the property.